Hi everyone, my name is Victor Nwoke, and in this quick walkthrough, I'm going to deploy complete Linux-based environment in Azure using VS Code and Bicep templates. To start, I will create a resource group using Azure CLI just to keep everything clean and organized in one place. So I will say AZ group creates location East US and the group name RG. I'll hit enter. Now I've successfully created our resource group. So I created a template, a bicep template. We define the core infrastructure. In this template, we have a virtual network with two subnets, one for each VMs, two network security group, each with inbound rules, HTTP, and an availability set to ensure high availability by distributing VMs across ports and update domains. So I'm going to be using these templates to deploy two Linux virtual machines, app VM and a web VM. Each VM will sit in its own subnet but connected through the same virtual network. Now let's deploy the resources. To deploy the resources using Azure CLI, I will say AZ deployment group create group name and resource group name RG and the file name deploy.bicep. I'll hit enter. I'll impute my password for the first VM, password for the second VM, enter, and wait for it to deploy. We have successfully created all resources. I'll move to my Azure portal to confirm if I hit refresh. Now these are all the resources I deployed using the Bicep template. Now the reason I created the availability set is to improve resilience, which helps maintain uptime during planned and unplanned maintenance. Now I will open my terminal where I will configure both virtual machines, Linux virtual machines, with a basic IIS like web server, updating the indexed HTML file to confirm access. Now first I'll open the app VM where I'll copy the public IP, open my terminal, say SSH app admin at my IP. I'll hit enter, yes, and the password. Now, first thing I'll do is to update my sudo. Say sudo pt update, hit enter, and wait for it to update. Next, I will have to install ngx. I'll say sudo apt install nginx, hit enter. My nginx web server, I will say chmod 77 www html, enter, cd www html / enter. I'll say echo h1 this is my app VM. I'll close the h1, close this, or this index ml, and now to confirm I'll open a new tab and impute my public IP. Now you can see this is my app VM. So I'll do the same thing to my web VM. I'll go to my web VM virtual machines and copy the public IP. Open my terminal. Say SSH web admin, paste my public IP, hit enter, say yes, then the password for my web VM. Now I have to update my sudo apt update, enter. Next, I will say sudo chmod 777 var html, hit enter, cd var www.html echo h1. This is my web VM. Close the h1. Index.html, hit enter. Now to confirm, I'll open a new tab. Now I have my both VMs ready. Next, I'll move to my Azure portal to set up a load balancer. Now, before setting up a load balancer, I'll have to deassociate both VM's public IP. Go to my resource group. I'll deassociate the app public IP, app VM public IP. Hit on deassociate. Now it's loading. Go back to my resource group. Look for the web public IP. Hit on deassociate. Now on the search bar, I will search for load balancer. I will click on create standard load balancer. Here I will select my resource group, the name of the load balancer. I will say LB, the region, SQ standard, type should be public. I'll go next to my front end IP, which will be my new public IP. I will add a front end public IP configuration. Here, I'll give a name to my front end, LB front end. I'll create a new public IP, which will be load balancer public IP. I'll save it and save. Next, I'll move to my back end pool. I'll hit on the add backend pool, which will be, give it a name, LB backend pool. Select my virtual network. I'll come down to IP configuration and hit on add. Here I will select both VMs and add both VMs and hit on save. Next, I will configure my inbound rule. The first inbound rule should be load balancer rule. I will click on add a load balancer rules. On the name should be load balancer rule, IP version IPv4. Front end IP address should be my front end IP, and back end should be my back end I created earlier. The port should be 80 and the backend port should also be 80. I'll create a new heads probe. I'll call it load balancer HP. I'll save it. I'll leave the rest as default. I'll hit on save. Now I've successfully created my load balancer rule. For my NAT rule, which will enable SSH access on custom ports on both VM, I will add an NAT inbound rule. I'll create a NAT rule for both VMs. I'll say this is NAT app VM. This is for NAT app VM. Type Azure virtual machines. On the target, should be my app VM. I'll select my app VM. On the network IP config should be the public and private public IP for the app VM. On the front end should be my front end I created earlier. The port should be 2000. And the back end, since it's a Linux machine, I'll say the backend port should be 22. Then I'll leave the rest as default. I'll hit save. I'll hit on add a new NAT rule again for the web. This should be for the web VM. I'll select my web VM, the private IP for the web VM, select my front end IP address, be 1000, and backend port should be 22 since it's also a Linux machine. I'll leave the rest as default. I'll hit on save. I'll then review and create. I'll hit on create and wait for our load balancer to be created. Now we have successfully created our load balancer. A load balancer is a network service that distributes incoming traffic across multiple resources. Like this, we have two VMs, two virtual machines, to ensure no single resources is overwhelmed. When one VM is overwhelmed, the load balancer will make available for the second VM to be accessible. We go to our resource, to our front end. We need our front end IP to test our load balancer. Now you can see we don't need our public IP for the VMs. All we need is the public IP for our load balancer to access both VM. It will keep switching to either the web VM or the app VM. Now to access our virtual machines, our Linux virtual machines, using the inbound NAT rule we created earlier, we have to copy the front end IP. To access the app VM, we copy the front end IP. We use the front end port by saying SSH app admin at the load balancer IP, and we say ports 2000. Now we can access the VM, hit enter and hit our password. Now you can see we can access the app VM. To also access the web VM, we also need the ports, the front end ports for the web VM, which is 3000. So we say SSH web admin, our front end IP, our load balancer IP. We say ports 3000, hit enter. By this, we can access both VM. I can ping each VMs using my private IP. If I go to my resource group, and if I want to ping the app VM using the private IP, copy the private IP, go to my terminal. So from my web VM, I can ping the app VM private IP. Now the goal here is to demonstrate how you can combine automation with Azure Portal to build a modular, scalable, and resilient infrastructure, giving you both speed and full control over network and access. If you find this helpful, feel free to connect, like, share, or drop a comment below. Thanks for watching.